be honest, there was a time when you really trusted a Toyota or a Honda a lot more than you do today, right? And that's exactly where I'm at. Why buy a regular car? The luxury car segment are actually better. They're better to drive, they're equally reliable, and in many cases are more reliable. And if you look at the long list of recalls, which companies have the worst recalls? GM, Ford, Honda, Toyota, those are the big players. And there was a time when you thought those cars were absolutely amazing. For, a lot of times we've considered, buying older used Toyotas for our kids or, even for us for a winter beater. That time has come and gone, and the vast majority of those older reliable cars, from a time when they were naturally aspirated, they didn't have turbos, they didn't have big screens, they didn't have all of these haptic controls. They were just a simple car, and many of them with a manual gearbox meant that they were kind of fun to drive. They were also reliable, and if something wore out, you could change parts pretty easily, and in most cases, you could do it right on your driveway. Life's too short to drive boring cars. Why are we getting behind the wheel, spending $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 for a garden variety Ford? Even Hondas and Toyotas are now getting up in that stratosphere. And we're doing that now with the premise and the assumption that they're going to be reliable, and then, sadly, we're mistaken. If you were to ask me 10 years ago, it was pretty clear. You said you wanted a good car to drive. I'd say if you wanted a reliable car, you'd buy a Toyota. And if you wanted a fun car, you'd probably buy a BMW or a Porsche. Now those tables have turned. And I've realized this through all of my documentation, as well as through this research I've been doing in the last 5 years. I'm going to reveal that to you now and why, in fact, I'm changing the page on this channel. That's right, Exotic Car Play started from a place of passion, enthusiasm for cars. And for those of you who are the OGs from the channel, those of you that knew that I had a passion for fun, furious, exotics, luxury cars, and even enthusiast cars that didn't cost very much money. If they got you a smile on your face and they got you out of the house, you can go pull in some gears and you had fun driving a car, that's what I love. I'll be the first to admit, Toyota Corollas don't light my fire. Nissan Sentras don't do it either. And sadly now, with the vast majority of these smaller cars no longer available with manual transmissions, most cars now have CVTs, which we know are inherently unreliable. And in this last 5 years, I've got validation up to the yin-yang. When you talk about the Jatcos that we've seen from Nissan, we've talked about Honda having CVT issues in the earlier generations. Toyota has CVT, their eCVTs are fine too, but Toyota's having problems, their own struggles with their V6 turbos now. They've had all kinds of recalls with backup cameras, glitchy screens. Even some of the latest, including the new Camry, now has recalls against it. And so I'm coming from a place now with all of this experimentation and research I've been doing over the last 5 years. I've been giving you a lot of the insight and the good and the bad and the ugly regarding normal cars, everyday cars, and luxury cars. Yes, I've been including everything. But like they say, you can't be everything for everybody, and therefore we're going to focus. See, because 2026 promises to be an exciting new year. A year where I'm really going to dial in and focus in on what matters. Ultimately, it's driving. When we think about our grandparents and our great-grandparents, driving was more than just getting to the store to pick up some groceries. Driving was actually the ability to sort of escape for that period of time. Go somewhere where you can't necessarily get to by foot. Let all of your thoughts and worries dissipate. See, and the beauty is, a lot of these modern day enthusiast cars are just that exciting. Think of the new Corvettes. ZR1X is absolutely crushing and dominating on the track. Porsche has never ever created cars this phenomenal, with lap times that are cracking the Nürburgring well under 7 minutes. Ferrari, you may or may not love the direction they're going, but let's be honest. They're coming with all kinds of great technology that means Ferrari is better, faster, more precise than they've ever been, and more reliable. A lot of times we look at these luxury brands and enthusiast brands and we sort of shrug them off as junk, unreliable trash, crap that we don't want, because it's going to cost us a lot of problems and heartache and money out of our wallet. See, but the reality is, we're not seeing that as much on the luxury car side. Show me down in the comment section below. Give me some examples of some luxury car brands that have catastrophic high volumes of engine and transmission recalls. I'd like you to drop that line for me, please. And there are recalls, don't get me wrong. BMW's had issues with the starter motors and backup cameras, but let's be honest, those are nickel and dime issues, and merely 10 years ago, nobody had backup cameras. The heart of the car is always the engine and transmission. Everyday brands, even the ones that you trusted four short years ago, the Hondas and Toyotas, are absolutely inundated. Like Honda's, that 1.5 oil and fuel dilution issue, blowing head gaskets, What is that crap? Same thing goes with Toyota. I can't even think of a Toyota right now I would really want to buy. Not really. There's some that I would buy if I had to, and I've expressed those in certain videos in the past. But with all of their conglomeration of recalls, and you can't deny this. I mean, please, if you truly believe that Toyota is as reliable or more so than they used to be, drop a line if you believe that. Toyota's no longer the brand we trusted. They've changed CEOs or leaders of the organization. They've changed focus. They've gone more hybrids, a little bit of electrification. But most importantly, they've dropped some of their heartbeat, their bread and butter. You know, their 3.5 V6s, torque converter autos, and they've replaced it with smaller turbo 4s, hybrid drives. And then himself, they do create some of the best hybrid drive systems in the market. And if that's what floats your boat, absolutely go for it. But let's be honest, Toyota has really spent a lot more focus on creating cars that sip the fuel, are actually doing more with less, meaning that a lot of these engines just don't last as long. Now using low tension piston rings, what a joke. Honda, CVTs, yeah, they're not failing. Jeep, park your vehicle outside orders because for fear the 4xEs on the Wrangler and the Jeep Grand Cherokee might burn your garage down. And those are mainstream brands. And what the hell are these manufacturers thinking? The one drawback with any of these luxury cars is the elevated hourly shop rate's going to be a little bit higher, typically 50 to 70% higher than they are in a non-luxury brand. Parts are going to be a little bit more money as well. But I promise you, and I've driven luxury car and enthusiast cars all my life. The trade-off is absolutely immense. Now, there are disastrous luxury cars and there's brutal enthusiast cars. A lot of them are actually reliable. There's actually a whole host of new luxury cars that have now finally outdone these mainstream normal brands. And if you've yet to drive or test driven any of these luxury cars today, then you're missing out. See, because a lot of these brands, sure, while they're incorporating things like some of these capacitive controls, every brand is. Look at what Volkswagen, even Honda's dialing things up a little bit, and Toyota's putting the big screens and they're not perfect either. But all of these brands are trying the future. The future of what? Technology. You're thinking, I don't want a luxury car. It's too complex, too much technology. Well, wait a minute. Every car brand is doing that. Even the mainstream. They're using turbocharged, direct injected engines. They're using big screens. They're using all of the technology you're now finding over on the luxury side. They're doing the exact same thing. And so what I've realized in this last 5 years, if you're going to drive a car and you're going to risk some potential failures and elevated service costs, I never really let those things get in my way because the very first day I got an opportunity to drive my first Porsche 911, I always thought it's just a name. They sound a little rattly. They're kind of like ridiculous. And why are people paying so much money for those cars? And that car was a 1977 911. After I drove that car, I sold my Mazda and I was buying myself a 911. They are that good. If you've never driven some of these premium enthusiast cars, then you're missing out. And what it did was actually convert me. See, because I came from a time, I grew up in a farming household where I always taught to be responsible with my money. I was always taught to be frugal. I was always taught that, make the smart decisions. But what I've also realized as time goes on and I've lost friends and people that have passed in my life and people that are meaningful to me, we're not here forever. We've got to enjoy with the time we have. What's your passion? Is it travel, fly fishing? Is it walking in a quiet park? Maybe it's driving your sports car or motorbike. Well, if cars are your answer, and if you get a chance to drive some of these cool enthusiast cars, trust me, you might in fact be converted. I was. And as a result, after this 5 years, there's one thing that's come to mind for me. They don't make them like they used to. A lot of people really are resenting the car manufacturers, creating the type of complexity, expensive repairs, hybridization, electrification, technology, big screens, turbos, direct injection. A lot of people hate on that. But you know what? Not every brand does it poorly. There are some brands out there that can still put together a solid car that's going to do you well. I mean, BMW, I'll give you a classic example. Their B58, their S58s. Those are both turbocharged inline 6-cylinder engine, their latest iterations, and believe it, they're reliable. Are they perfect? No. I mean, you could get a coolant leak here or there. The odd thermostat, the odd water pump may go with time. They've come so vastly better, that so good in fact, that even Toyota adopted that B58 engine for the Toyota Supra. Now we know that's primarily a BMW Z4. BMW has clawed and slashed their way to the top. From starting with turbos in 2007 with the N54, they felt the burn, the pain, and the anguish. They also felt the burn with their V8s. But over time, generation upon generation, they finally enhanced. What they had was an unreliable Sputnik of an engine, the V8s. But now, after generation upon generation, TU and NU upgrades, they've now finally got a V8 engine that's properly shielded, properly fueled, and is actually a pretty durable engine. They're still going to be expensive to maintain, and I'm not going to blow smoke where smoke don't go. But again, you have to ask yourself, what are you doing with your time? What are you doing with your money? How long do you think you're going to live?
Is it possible that a parrot could give a young girl the will to live?
Do you like driving cars? Well, I love driving cars. As we move forward in 2026, one thing's clear. Everybody's edging up their complexities and their issues, and we're seeing more and more problems, but every company's also using more plastic, outsourcing for supply chain, for parts. Unfortunately, supply chain is a big challenge because a lot of OEMs just don't know how to call out on quality control issues, and sometimes when there's a mistake somewhere upstream on a supplier, that problem carries through hundreds of thousands of vehicles before they even change up the problem. The pursuit of more money is a problem, and the research and development to enhance and design a lot of these electrified vehicles is a problem. We also can't forget about CAFE standards and the EPA that are bearing down on every OEM that's trying to create something that's fun. I mean, we're car enthusiasts. Start going from a V8 or a V6 down to a Turbo 3 with a hybrid. Like, who wants that? But ultimately, that's what a lot of these OEMs are doing. The focus on the luxury car space is continue delivering the luxury car feel and the driving experience. Whereas the mainstream brands, they keep trying to add more luxury elements to a non-luxury vehicles, and all it does is come out looking cheap. Vinyl seats that look like leather but really just feel like crap. And ultimately, it can be convincing to buy a non-luxury brand with all of the features. The fact is, none of them work as well. Heated steering wheels that only heat up the top sections, sunroofs that are half the size, and the engines are vastly smaller in the mainstream brands for the most part. So that's what we're going to do. There are a whole host of enthusiast cars I'm going to continue to share as the channel continues to move forward in 2026. And hold on tight, because if you enjoy the driving experience at all, or even if you just like the feeling of getting into a nice vehicle, and maybe you're not a diehard that wants an 800 horsepower Ferrari, but you just want something that kind of feels nice and is comfortable and it feels solid, well, you're going to want to know about that too, because enthusiast cars deliver on all points, whereas some of the mainstream brands simply don't. Where once the sacrifice was reliability. You'd buy a luxury car, you knew you were going to take the beats on reliability. But see, the tables have turned, because the mainstream brands now are the ones with all the recalls, the problems, the issues, and it appears that more and more of these luxury car brands are actually edging up their reliability. And a lot of it has to do with, think Volkswagen versus Audi. You know, Audi is stepping up their game because they're the big brother. They sort of have their benchmark of the VAG group. Porsche, they have a big reputation and some mighty big shoes to fill, so they can't go backwards. Ferrari, they have to continually build the next better car. And like they say with any Ferrari, what's the best Ferrari? It's the latest Ferrari. And so ultimately, those are the conversations I'm going to be having as we progress in 2026. And as we move forward, we are talking about enthusiast cars. No more of this ho-hum bullshit. No more of this crap about CVTs. I mean, we'll use them as comparative sakes. There will be conversations, but the focus and emphasis is the fact that we're not here forever, and life's way too short to drive boring cars. So as we progress, I challenge you to join the channel, come back time and time again, because we're going to feature some of the best and the worst and ultimately the cars you want to buy. If you enjoy the enthusiast driving experience, trust me, you've come to the right place. Check out those two videos. They're going to start kicking things off for you real quick. Hope to see each and every one of you real soon, everybody. Bye-bye.